Shalom. Welcome to the Jewish View. My name is Rabbi Nachman Simon with the Chabad House of Delmar, together with my co-host Mark Kronich of Statewide News Service, jbiztechvalley.com, and now columnist for the Jewish Press.
Yep, I have a column called Albany Beat, and I talk about how government relates to the Jewish community, or doesn't, as the case may be. But as you know, the Jewish community is often tied in with unions, and we have with us today Bill Ritchie, who's the president of the Albany County Central Federation of Labor. And I'm sure there's a lot of people who don't even know that we had an Albany County Central Federation of Labor. But welcome to the Jewish View.
Thank you for inviting me.
So tell us what this federation is all, labor union is about.
Okay. Well, you're aware. I know that the organized labor exists on a national level with the AFL-CIO and on the state level, and we are the sort of local manifestation of the AFL-CIO. And we draw delegates from about 37 different unions. Some of those unions are small, some of them are quite large, like PEF or CSEA or
That would
NICET.
be the biggest state unions?
Yeah, those would be our biggest unions, yeah. And we, as I say, we draw delegates from about 37 different locals. Mm-hmm. We meet monthly. We have a very active executive committee which meets very regularly to set our agendas and to provide leadership for our Labour Council. And as well as that, as we meet monthly and between our meetings, we involve ourselves in all sorts of different types of activities. We spend a fair amount of time during the election season interviewing and endorsing candidates who we consider to be Labour friendly, or even better, Labour champions, right? We also work for those people after we endorse them. And we make sure that we maintain our communication with them after the election, if it has been successfully taking place.
When do you do your endorsement? What month?
We do our endorsements just before the primary, actually.
So the September primary?
Yeah, the September primary. So it's generally, we start working on this thing about, around about July, June, July,
So
August.
You do it after the petitioning process is over? After a candidate has been identified by the Board of Elections as being a valid candidate.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. Okay. But that's just one part of the work that we do.
Absolutely.
We also spend a lot of time working with any union or any group of workers who happen to be interested in organizing themselves into a union. For example, this year we supported the crossing guards here in Albany, right? And we also supported the drivers at Durham. And
Durham Bus Company.
Durham Bus Company,
not
right?
Durham Greene County.
Right, not Durham Greene County, right? Exactly. I mean, our motivation there is to move and to encourage the organized labor agenda, and to get as many people organized into unions and to make unions as powerful as reasonably possible, But we've had some very, very interesting times with people who've been organizing. We also support unions which are involved with contract disputes, and we have no problem at all in asking our members to go to the Common Council and to speak on behalf of unions, or to the county legislature for that matter, to talk about the importance of trying to resolve disputes in a reasonable and reasonably expedient manner, and that's something else that we're very interested in doing.
Generally, nationally, and you can tell me about Albany, the union membership has gone down. Must be with the state employees also, because they always say that they're cutting jobs onto the
Yeah, well,
state.
there has been quite a serious cutback in the number of people working for the state, and that then is reflected in an organization to some extent like ours. But I mean, we're getting a delegate or some delegates from a union or unions, and it doesn't really affect us that much in terms of the number of people we have coming to our meetings or the activities that we involve ourselves in, and also involve as many of our union partners in as possible,
Yeah, another idea, I don't know, again, like you say, the state I know is the unionized, but a lot of times you hear about these corporations that'll go to North Carolina or they'll go to Mexico saying, hey, we don't want to deal with the unions, we'll just pick up our factories. I don't know how much that affects Albany County. Those
Well,
are more like your industrial.
Well, I mean, when you take a look at the statistics pertaining to union membership in this country, it looks pretty much like the public employees are way ahead in terms of involvement. I mean, 35.6 or something like that % of public employees are unionized, whereas only...
Really, it's only that much? I thought they're
Oh, yeah.
all unionized.
Oh, no,
Really?
no, and then that's in the public sector. In the private sector, something like 6.6% of the workers are unionized.
Really,
right?
I didn't know it was that low.
Yeah.
So it was higher than that.
Yeah. Well, I think the point is that, well, not the point, but one of the reasons for that is that, you know, up until the 70s, there was a sort of a different type of social compact, I would say, in existence between employers, between owners, between the people who were running the country, between the right-wing sort of elements in the country, and generally speaking, the community, right? But following the 60s, I mean, a very definite intensity developed with respect to the attack on unions, you know? And this was really moved in the 70s, but to a much greater extent following the 1981 strike of the PATCO, the air traffic controllers.
Yeah.
I remember that, yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah, where President Reagan actually fired 11,500 people, workers. And the effect of that was, I think, twofold. First of all, it showed people that it showed whoever was interested, it was possible to bust a union, right? Mm-hmm. But secondly, it was okay to bust a union. So it sort of empowered the people who were looking to get rid of unions in this country to a great extent. And that drift has developed to a much greater extent, to the point where we saw in Wisconsin, where that reactionary governor was only too happy. Scott Walker. Hard to say his name.
Okay,
but nevertheless, where that character was able to have legislation passed which almost took away completely collective bargaining and dues checkoff and agency fee. And the result was that in Wisconsin there was a very serious drop-off in union membership.
Right.
So that's just, you know, we're fighting for our lives at this point. You know what I'm saying? I have to say that, but I'm not pessimistic either.
But there are companies, I mean, again, locally, obviously, no more locally than what's happening in, like, say, Wisconsin. But there are companies, well, not companies, the workers of the companies are unionizing. I mean, you hear a few headlines like that.
Oh.
I mean, is that, a trend?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, in terms of the Gallup poll, for example, which takes place every year pertaining to how people feel about unions. This year particularly, the number of people interested in supporting unions has increased to something like 58%, which doesn't sound like an awful lot, you know. But
that's a majority.
It's a majority, and it's interesting, and it compares sort of unfavorably in a sense with what was happening in the 30s. When unions had probably their most exciting and most
their heyday,
their heyday, and where, you know, they were provided an enormous support and push for FDR to pass legislation which was of a benefit to working people in general, you know.
So let me ask you this: you're talking about how, you know, unions are, you know, on the downswing now, I guess, from the heyday of the 30s. Okay, but do candidates for office not go to seek your endorsement? I mean, are you struggling to be relevant in terms of the political process?
Well, first of all, I mean, there may be a downswing, but I mean, I think we sort of plateaued out to some extent. Okay. You know, that's the first thing I want to say. My second response would be this: that we find that in Albany County, we find there's an absolute preponderance of Democrats who seem to be interested in getting Labour endorsements, right? The Republican candidates for the county legislature, for example, don't seem to have much of an interest in getting a Labour endorsement. And that's not something which is new, but at the same time, we're not interested in endorsing somebody who has negative intentions in terms of unions.
But you
know?
only endorsed one person from the city of Albany in the county legislature, and he's your first vice president, Doug Bullock.
That's correct.
So no one else from the city of Albany and the 15 county legislators who represent the city came to you for your endorsement?
We have, not that many actually came. I just, off the top of my head, I can't tell you.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
But I know that we have, at the same point, also rejected some people who have come to us for endorsement. We only endorse people who we feel we can be fairly confident will be supporters of Labour. We don't expect them to be supporters of Labour 100% of the time, but we certainly expect them to understand our issues, and we provide legislative forums for that purpose, and we attempt to maintain a good relationship with them as we move through the year, you know.
People before the primaries, maybe Mark is saying that they come before your committee or whatever,
before
and saying, hey, that, you know, I'd like your endorsement. Obviously, it'd be very helpful to have a union endorsement.
Sorry.
No, you would think that everyone in the county legislature who was from the city of Albany would want your endorsement, and because they don't have opponents, and it's always nice to put, you know, the endorsement of a union on their cards and all, you know, on their palm cards.
Yeah, well, we did endorse Paul Miller.
Well, Guilderland.
From Guilderland, right? And we regarded him as being one of our very important endorsements.
Did you ever endorse Mary Lou Connelly?
No, we did not endorse Mary Lou Connelly.
Ever?
Ever.
Okay.
And I think the part of the reasoning behind that certainly had to do with the nursing home, which I think she would tell you and say probably and feel that she had been a big supporter of the nursing home, and we would probably have said that that wasn't entirely the case, and that we felt following our interview with Paul Miller that he would have taken a much...
Because how many jobs are you talking about at that?
Well, but the point is that Paul could say whatever he wants now, because to the union, he wasn't there when the rubber hit the road. So Paul comes in, says, oh yeah, I would have, could have, should have done this.
It's easy to
and
talk.
You know, easy to talk after the issue's over. But again, you know, it's all settled because the nursing home is on an upswing and the proper track.
Right.
But I'm just saying, we're concerning the union, how many jobs, because you were concerned with the jobs there?
I'm
the
not sure
nurses
off the
and,
top of my head just how many people work in the nursing home.
But if that's what you were concerned with, though, the workers. You don't want that.
Absolutely. Because we knew that if it was privatized as was proposed initially, that the people who were working there could well have lost their pension rights, and they would have been an awful lot worse off in terms of probably of wages and salaries. And we were sort of there was an attempt on our part to defend them to the greatest degree possible, you know.
And being that Mary Lou was chair of the health committee, she had a lot of say in
the
nursing home.
Yeah.
So, and then you endorsed Tim Nichols, who lost.
Right, that's true. We did.
Tim's always been a staunch Labour supporter.
He's a solid Labour supporter. It was a disappointment for us, I'll tell you the truth,
sure.
right? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But everyone else, you've been successful. Oh,
Yeah,
Matt Miller, that's the new name.
Matt Miller, it's just that
was an open seat because Peter Klaus.
No, it wasn't an open seat actually, because
who did he?
The incumbent was Richard Mendick, I believe.
Oh, Rich Mendick.
Yes.
Oh, right. Okay, and he won. So
and
Matt
he won,
lost.
and
Okay.
he has been the incumbent for some time.
Yes.
And he has serious status on the. I'll give this to him on the county legislature, right? And I think Matt, although he himself was an outstanding candidate as far as we were concerned, took on a very difficult challenge in attempting to defeat and unseat Richard Mendick. No question about that. And we worked really hard. We were out Saturday after Saturday going door to door on his behalf, but unfortunately we just couldn't swing it.
Right.
So we had to deal with it.
Did Rich try to get your endorsement? Did he come?
No, he did not.
No,
No,
he
not
didn't
at
even
all.
try. Okay.
No, I didn't try. No.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Now, you talk about how you have, you're the umbrella for certain other smaller other unions where you have other unions that are I'm not saying it just 100% right, but there are other unions who are part of your federation.
Yes,
Okay.
I think it's important also, something I should have said earlier on perhaps was that there is an umbrella organisation which also exists.
Well, that's what I'm getting to.
Which is the Capital District Area Labour Federation.
Right.
And that consists of 5 labour councils, us being one of them, right?
Right, so I'm saying that you have your subsets
Yes.
for your Albany County
Right.
Labor Federation, but then you carry on as one of 5 labor federations.
That is true.
In the larger capital district.
That's correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
yeah.
there's this hierarchy, and
Yeah.
certainly
Yeah.
it gives enough. It's like a bureaucracy unto itself.
Well, I wouldn't describe it so much as a bureaucracy. That's a sort of a pretty loaded word these days. I'm sure I'll be using it before we finish here today. But anyway, I would say that it's more of a facilitative function that it's really performing. If we want to get the word out about a picket line or about support for a strike,
Yes.
we would ask the Capital District Area Labour Federation, which runs a somewhat more sophisticated IT function than we do, to put out an e-blast to that effect.
Sure.
Whereas I would be sending, an email to, 80, 90, 100 people, they would be sending it to many, many more people,
And what's happening now? Under the Labor Council representatives, under this Labor Council, Albany County has a vacancy, according to what I found. Mmaybe I'm not.
That's correct, and
Okay.
we are in the process of filling that,
Okay.
and we have a candidate from the Plumbers and Pipe Fitters Union, who is an outstanding candidate, and I'm not expecting anything but an acceptance of our recommendation for his nomination.
You want to give us his name by any chance, or?
I've no problem with
He's
that.
a newsman. He's looking for a scoop over here.
Well, okay. His name is Wayne McMahon, and
Wayne McMahon.
Wayne McMahon, and he is the treasurer of our Labour Council, right? And he is an outstanding treasurer and somebody who I can sort of I can vouch for
Yeah.
without
Okay.
at the drop of a hat. I'll tell you right now. Great guy.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So that's going to be filled at some point. But how long has that vacancy been?
That vacancy has been going on too long, unfortunately,
yeah.
I would say. Let's be honest, right? We've been sort of moving along, and we've been involving ourselves with so many other issues and so many other developments that it did slip a little bit. But we've got the momentum now, and
Alrighty.
we're going to be set up 100%.
So what happened I know in 2010 you had this thing where SUNY was under siege, that you were you gave a big speech at a March rally at SUNY Albany.
Yeah, absolutely.
So tell us about that. What was the problem there?
The problem there, as I recall, that's a while back, right?
5 years.
Was that
It's like yesterday.
Well,
for
it is like
people our age,
Yeah, the problem. We'll not talk about age. The problem there was that SUNY was cutting back on a lot of humanities courses
Right.
and programs, and even departments, right? And we felt as representatives from different unions, and because of our connections with and from the community, right, that we had a responsibility to actually speak out and make an effort to ensure that these really vicious cutbacks were not going to take place,
Professors are unionized
Well,
again.
like for example, they were going to do away with the theater department.
Yeah,
And
amazing,
then,
right?
And then when I talked to the SUNY president, Dr. Robert Jones,
Right.
Just a few months ago, he said they reinstituted the theater department.
Right.
They put money back in.
Yeah.
So that's why I was bringing it up, because I didn't know if that was through your efforts from 5 years ago, and maybe they've seen the light. But
I'm just saying, but concerning the union, though.
Right.
I mean, Bill cares about the union.
Sure.
Well,
And
Those are
But that's
professors.
part
I
of
mean,
they're professors. It's coursework. It's your jobs.
Right.
It's culture.
So
Yeah.
all these professors are unionized. That's what I'm
the
assuming.
professors at SUNY Albany are unionized. They're members of the...
graduate students are...
Sorry?
The graduate students are unionized also.
Yeah, I believe they are.
Yeah.
And
Maybe just not with your union.
No,
But,
but at the same time, I'm not going to speculate on what my influence was, but I gave a pretty radical speech, as I recall, and I was glad I did that. Mm-hmm. And I felt I was making a real connection between the town and the gown, as they say, you know? Mm-hmm. And that was sort of an important, for me personally, that was an important thing to be doing. And I knew that I had the support of our executive committee and our delegates, you know? Because I think there's a couple of things going on with the labour movement. I would, if you don't mind, like to get back to this question.
Go ahead.
I'd like to get back to this question of decline, right?
Good.
Because that is one of the most important issues that we can deal with at this present time. I think in my mind, there are sorts of two types of unions, you know? I mean, there's the union which follows a sort of a service model on the one hand, and then there's the other union, type of union, which is an organizing union, right? Now, I have just retired for a second time, this time from the Nurses Association, which is the nursing union for the state of New York. NISNA, right? And has about, I think statewide, about 37,000 members. And that's a union which is in transition from being a sort of a service model to an organizing model. And with an organizing model, the point, I think, is to get as much involvement as is humanly possible from the actual members on the floor, in the unit, wherever it happens to be, and to make sure that we are empowering individuals within the union, right? Because if it's a service model, something goes wrong, you call the union, a bureaucrat turns up of some sort and works some sort of magic, or hopefully works some sort of magic, gets you back out of trouble and disappears. That does not empower you as a union member. It doesn't encourage you to go and get other people to join the union, right? But if you are involved in the process of resolving your own issues to the greatest extent possible, you're excited about what's happening, and at times you will have successes. And I think you will, at some point, be a person who becomes an organizer, in a sense, on the ground floor, rather than having to wait for an organizer to come from headquarters. You know what I'm saying?
Do you think that it's helpful that the State Nurses Association moved their headquarters down to New York and out of Albany? They used to be in Latham. They have a satellite office on Washington Avenue now, but their main headquarters is down in New York City.
Well, there's a couple of things involved here. I think something like 25,000 maybe of the nurses, maybe even more, who are in the
union
are in New York City, right? But
still,
that's not necessarily.
We have the government here, and you've got to rally the government. Why is it why isn't the president or some more than just a satellite office and one or two people here in Albany?
Well, it's an awful lot more than one or two people, actually.
Well, not what I saw when I went up there. Well, what I was told when I walked in and they were like, "How'd you get into the building?" I mean, it's like, "Oh, we can't see people," you know.
Well, let's do it geographically then. That complete fourth floor is occupied by NISNA, right? In the building next door to the one we're sitting in right now, right? So it's not as though that there are one or two people.
All right.
I'm sure there's probably maybe 40 or 50 or even more people. And a lot of the administrative work is done from this office. But more importantly, they are located in proximity to that place down the street where things function now and again and don't function for a lot of the time. I'm talking about the state legislature, right? And lobbyists, of course, their in-house lobbyists, I know, have offices at the building next door on Washington Avenue here in Albany, you know. So
right.
This is a good point. I mean, you know, at the same time, the Nurses Union has made a very strong attempt to locate offices, satellite offices, in different places. In fact, today, I happen to know that they were opening a new office in Buffalo, right?
Okay.
So, I mean, it's not as though they're sort of, all disappearing down to the city.
Well, I'll have to ask you to implore upon the president of the union, Nurses Union, to come on the show. Because I've been asking, and she's like, I don't come out of New York City. You know, I'm in New York City. She doesn't want to come up. Like Albany was so foreign to her.
Well, I can certainly talk to some people, even though I'm not an employee anymore.
No, I understand.
I'm still on best of working terms with
Right.
practically everybody I met in that union,
Okay.
you know.
Okay.
But I mean, just to get back again to this
Yeah,
decline
go ahead.
business, right? I think
We digress.
one of the examples that I really like to talk about.
Your clip came off. Just
Clip it on.
just clip it on your.
That's good.
That's
5 minutes.
okay.
Technical difficulties.
That's
Okay.
right.
All right, now
Okay,
we're
go
good.
ahead.
Yeah, one of the unions that I do like to talk about is the Chicago Teachers Union, right?
Wait a minute. My mother, I'm from Chicago.
Oh, really?
Really? And my mother was the school representative in the Chicago Teachers Union.
Okay,
Yeah.
the Chicago Teachers Union is an organization which has transformed itself over the last 10 years.
Really, there always seems to be on strike. When I was a kid,
They were on strike.
every other year.
Yeah, they may well have been on strike, but they were on strike for very good reasons. Because they were dealing with a very archaic school system, right? And a very oppressive sort of school system, and a school system which wasn't addressing the needs of the students to the degree it should have been. Now, under the present leadership of that organization, they were able to transform what would traditionally have been a cry from teachers for better salaries and better working conditions to advocacy for the reform of the education system. And that is why they were able to mobilize not just teachers when they were on strike in 2012, but many, many, many parents and many community members, because they had integrated the needs of the community with the needs of the teachers. Because the teachers are there, they're working in the community, and whether they like it or not, they are of the community in a sense, you know? And I think that this is one of the keys to the resurgence of the union movement. We have to become not just regular unions, but I would call it social justice unions, which take on the issues which are confronting the people in the communities in which we are teaching, right? And they have to do so in a very serious and a very conscientious manner. It's not just like a piece of opportunism to get a better contract. That's over, because that's not going to work very much more, you know? I mean, and I think what we have to be very clear upon is that our members have to understand in an analytical way the forces they are confronted by, and have to be very willing to bring on board, if not already, the struggle against racism in this country, and classism for that matter, because those are two issues which resonate with people, particularly in challenged neighborhoods.
That was in Chicago Teachers Union?
Absolutely, yeah.
Really?
And you're going to carry that model over into New York State, or?
I think what's happening is other unions have seen the benefit of this more organizing model, so to speak, right? You have to do two things, I think, to be successful. You have to be organizing internally. You have to be getting your own members completely involved to the greatest degree possible, right? At the same time, you have to be incorporating the community issues, and the actual vehicle which this took was the reform of the education in Chicago. Now, that's by no means a closed issue, as we all know.
I'm sure that.
I mean, Chicago is not a place where the people running that city are going to let you play around too much unless you can really confront them, and that's what the teachers union was able to do.
All right, excellent. Listen, we have a few more minutes, but Mark, I have to mention, because we're on the Jewish View.
Right, absolutely.
So therefore, the founder of the CIO, if I remember my schooling, Samuel Gompers, was the son of a rabbi. He's organized it, and like I always say, you know, these are fairly modern issues. What's AFL-CIO, 100 years old,
Right.
or something like that. And Judaism, 3,300 years ago, had employee rights. You know, first of all, like a day off, for example,
Right.
which, you know, maybe nowadays it's like, of course, you know, but, you know, you get off and, you know, you treat your workers sensibly. I mean, this is like go thousands of years.
You pay your workers before you pay yourself if you're the employer.
Excellent.
Right.
Excellent. You always pay on time and you know, reasonably that they could live.
And what was the day off that they had, Saturday?
Saturday off. But that was important. I mean, you know, in those days, it was radical, you know, who took a day off. So now it's 2 days off for 3-day weekends and vacations, but really it was always an institution, right, part of Judaism thousands of years ago, so it only made sense that the Jews were really at the forefront of the unionized, because they knew, hey, there's real rights. What's happening here? Why are they subhuman, really, wages, you can't even live on? That's ridiculous. It just isn't right. And I said, my mother's a Chicago teacher, put a plug. My grandmother was one of the founders of the IGW.
ILGW.
Because one of her, that's it for everybody, it's International Garment
Workers, Lady Garment Workers.
International Ladies Garment Workers Union.
Right. Her friend was killed in a triangle fires in the early 1900s.
Wow.
It's very important. Again, people, say the issues of the union. Now it's like a little more money. People think, oh, they want more money. But in those days, the working conditions were horrible. Were terrible. I mean, people died because they locked the doors and you couldn't get out.
Sure,
and,
absolutely, yeah.
I mean, people just don't. I always like history because you don't understand the issues today unless you understand where people are coming from. Now it's like, oh, well, every worker wants a Cadillac just because they're working in some factory.
Right.
You have people talking that way. But what it was 100 years ago was incredible. People, the working conditions of a lot of these workers. And again, the Jewish people were very much on the forefront of making unions.
Absolutely. I was just about to say that that tradition was carried on, particularly in the 30s, right? Because many of the most exceptional leaders of the trade union movement in the 30s were Jewish folks of one sort or another, right?
Yeah, very much.
And that's
very much part of the labor movement.
Very much part of the labor movement, and we have Jewish people to thank for that. Because that's just a very, very important part of the history of the labor movement, right?
Are we out of time, Mark?
You got it.
We're having such a good time, but we're out of time. So I want
I have 50,000 things I want to talk about.
Yeah, well, you can always come back. We're always doing more
I have
shows.
several
One
pages.
second.
Don't stay there.
Bill,
Stay
Bill,
there, stay
one
there.
second. Dad, I got to give you a blessing that you're doing such good work. It's for the people. Listen, it's holding up for your common man.
Okay.
And that's very important. So continue your good work for you're doing for the person out there in, Albany County and maybe New York State, and helping them out and continue with the good work with good health.
All the best of continued success.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure talking with you. Okay. And I certainly would look forward to coming back with all these issues that I have in my idea knapsack here,
And we want to thank Joe Alandato for all his years of help on the show as well.
Thank you.